There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is episode 7 of Welcome to the End of the World. We've done 7 episodes now. Actually, more than
Wow.
that. There's a lost episode from way back
No,
in
yeah.
2020 that we recorded and then just I never ever released it because things got hard and heavy. And
Mhm.
life has been crazy since then. Speaking of life being
That's true.
crazy, before we get into the podcast, I have news that is, I guess, worth sharing with our listeners that we have.
Well, this will
If
be
you've,
me hearing about it too.
yeah, I'm just giving this live. So if you've been listening to the podcast, you've known that I've been sick recently. And the last time we talked, I mentioned on the podcast that my boss didn't believe that I was sick. So these are
Hmm.
all things that happened. Well, behind the scenes, been going through a lot of little bit of a mental health episode as I've been adjusting to a change in employment that I was undergoing. So I got a new job. I'm a teacher, or I work in education, if you want to say it like that. I don't know how you want to talk about it, but yeah, I teach English, creative writing, speech, communication, all that jazz. And so I left one school last year to come to a new school this year for a substantial pay increase. Wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I was applying for a lot of other jobs, PLC coaches, instructional support. Those are like the people who are what we call administration, but they're not principals. Their job is to work with the teachers to help improve the teachers. Because this is going on my ninth year of teaching and 13th
Hmm.
year of working in education. So kind of always been involved for almost 20 years now. Going on 15 years in one shape, one
Hmm.
form or another. So um, yeah, so I got this new job. It was supposed to be one thing where it was going to be kind of, wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Like I mentioned, I was looking for the PLC coach jobs. Did a lot of interviews, got a lot of interview processes, a lot of demonstration phases, a lot of here's some homework we want to see you work on, all of that stuff. And then you get to the end and they decided, oh, we just decided not to hire anybody.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of that. A lot of that. If anyone's looking for jobs right now in the United States, you kind of know that it's hard to find a job right now.
yeah.
It's sometimes it's better just to stay where you are, which is some advice that I maybe should have listened to because this week has been a little wild. So, backtracking a little bit. Sorry for all the tangents.
Mm.
Um, I'm drinking a little tequila tonight to celebrate.
Ooh, very nice. Oh,
Little te-
celebrating. Oh, I
Ew.
like where this is going.
This is going somewhere nice. Yeah. No, this is a good day. Mm. Ah, wonderful tequila. Don't ask me the
Nice.
brand. I don't know. I just look up online good tequila and I'm like, well, that one's in my price range. I'll buy it.
There you go.
Exactly. I'm a simple man.
Affordable tequila is good tequila.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, this was like a $30 bottle, so it's like a decent
Oh, there
price.
you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
That's fairly,
It's celebration. It's celebration.
I
It's not
think
like a
so.
birthday party. I'm not gonna drop like 100, but you know.
Yeah, no.
So, I have this job. I'm not gonna say which school it is because that would be inappropriate. But anyway, I have this
Right.
job, and it's not exactly what it was presented to me as. It was presented as one thing, which was not what I was looking for, like I said, but fulfilled a basic human need of paying bills.
Yeah.
Um, and so I took it.
Mhm.
And first week went okay. Second week went okay. But get end of second week, I start to get a little sick. And anyone that works in education knows when the school year starts, you get all this mixture of newts, children, germs, all this stuff. Doesn't help that the school I worked at kept it very cold. Very, very cold.
Oh.
Cold enough that as a person who runs hot,
Hmm.
I had to put on sweaters. It was that kind of
Oh,
cold
wow.
environment. Yeah, it was cold. Yeah, it was cold. I sleep with an window unit where the room is constantly set at about 65 degrees.
That
That's
seems
my
reasonable to me.
that's my normal.
Yeah.
And and even in that environment, I'm, I'm not hot, I'm not cold. I'm okay. I could make it
Hmm.
colder, but that's what good for my wife, right? So this
Oh,
school is
good.
colder than like significantly colder than that. We're talking at least in the 50s, maybe the high 40s. It was very
Good
cold,
Lord.
very very cold. So I get sick. Um, I don't have health insurance yet. My health insurance plan does not take effect until October 1st. Like I said last
Mhm.
time when we did the podcast. This is
Yeah.
kind of backtracking into last week's episode where we both talked about going to the doctor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I got diagnosed with basically what the doctor said was the like basically walking pneumonia. Um,
Mhm.
so I was out for almost a week and a half. The doctor said I probably should have stayed out a little bit longer, but she said I wasn't contagious and I could go back if I wanted to, and I would still have a cough.
Uh,
I went back. I wore a mask. I did another week. It did not go well. Um,
mhm.
the new environment has been very stressful to get used to. My boss accused me of being not sick when I was,
Ugh.
which kind of threw my mind into a little bit of a spiral of like whether or not this job was I had job safety at this place I had just started working at,
Mhm.
and you know, had classes of near 40 students, which is a
Yeah.
little bit crazy, very unmanageable. Wasn't getting
Mhm.
the support I really felt that I needed, on top of getting sick and trying to force myself to go to work. It's a combination of things, and my mental health was getting bad. So I kind of knew that I needed to leave, and I had made up my mind that I was going to leave. And off microphone last week, you and I talked about this, that I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to quit my job. At
Right.
least I was going to put my notice in. I was going to do it professionally. I've had
Mhm.
other bad jobs, and I've always left in a professional manner, 30 days, a month notice, 2 weeks, whatever they required.
Mhm.
So of this week comes up, and Monday is an interesting day. I get to work. It's a shitty day. Students aren't
Yeah.
listening to me. What
Mhm.
else is new? It is what it is. They're instituting new policies at school that are causing a bunch of confusion, and it's kind of just crazy. So
Hmm.
it's a very stressful day. In the middle of the stressful day, I get a text from my old boss, and my old boss says, "Hey, the teacher who we had that was teaching that took your job last year, um, she had a family crisis and she needs to leave. Would you be interested in coming back?"
Hmm.
And I was told my wife like I'm not a spiritual person, not a really religious
Mhm.
person.
Right.
I believe in something, but I can't put a name to it because I don't think it has a name.
Right.
Um, but whatever is out there, I feel like for just a brief moment, like shined a little bit of light on me because in that
Yeah.
moment, that was exactly what I was looking for. So I told him yes, and I've accepted that job. And so I no interview needed. Basically, I was just going back, got the job
Mhm.
offer, got the letter, got everything done. I start on September 30th, so I have a little 2 week break.
Oh.
I thought I was going to have to complete my contract at the place I was at.
Yeah.
Well, turns out an error on their part.
Oh.
My contract was never official.
What?
So, yeah. So I was never working under a contract. So I had no contract to resign from. So when I submitted my resignation letter, they told me to call HR, so I called HR, and they're like, "Okay, we got your resignation letter." Or they don't call it HR anymore, sorry. They call it talent management, which makes me sound like a failed actor, which is great.
Oh.
It's great. It's great. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm calling talent management." Yeah, I'm addicted to heroin again. I killed a sex worker. Yeah, the
Oh,
Ben Affleck special.
I was
Yeah,
about to say
yeah,
the Ben
yeah.
Affleck special. That's
The Ben
hilarious.
Affleck special. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead and send him. Yeah, send him over. Yep, thanks. Thanks. Yeah. So no. So they told me basically they were like, "Well, sir, we don't have you under contract, so you don't have to resign from anything. You just don't have to go to work anymore." And I was like, "Okay." So,
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
So I tried to go email my boss to be like, "Hey, change of plans," because I took a mental health day. I took a mental health day on Tuesday,
Mhm.
because my old boss wanted to talk to me for just a minute. He just wanted to talk to me. It took like 30 minutes. It wasn't a big thing. We just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to touch base, see how each other was, because I haven't been there in about just a month, really. Just a month is how long I haven't been there. Um, and it was one of those things where I left and I kind of like I said, I left because I wanted to become a PLC coach, and that wasn't
Hmm.
something I could do there. But it ended up being something I couldn't do anywhere because no one offered
Oh,
me that position. So I kind of, it was one of those things where I told my wife and I told other people I kind of had to eat a little bit of humble pie or a shit sandwich of,
right.
going into a very hard job market, even as a skilled. I mean, like I don't want to toot my own horn, but like I said, 13 years of experience in an
Yeah.
industry, a master's degree and two bachelor's degrees. Um, so I feel like I'm pretty well educated and fairly well,
Experience?
experienced. There's the word.
Absolutely.
So, and even that, I got basically no job offers. Like, okay,
Oh
I
God.
had I think I had about 30 interviews, and I got two job offers. And yeah, so it's a tough market out there. So if you're out there looking for work right now, I feel your pain. And
Hmm.
sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And yeah, there were some
Yeah.
issues last year in terms of some things that I was not happy about, but I feel like that's kind of going to be the case everywhere. And I'm really looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start there on September 30th, and yeah, it'll be fun to actually enjoy going to work.
Yeah, because
uh,
just to throw a, I don't know, probably not a good metaphor at it. That's a pair of pants you've worn before, right? Like
mhm.
that's so.
It is, it is, it is. And it's a pair of pants that, so another one of the reasons I left is because, so when, as a teacher, there's different kinds of classes, and some
Hmm.
classes are what we call EOC courses. These don't necessarily mean these classes are more important than your non-EOC courses. It just means that
Hmm.
EOC means that it's a state tested course. So
Oh,
when it comes to state and federal funding, this is how the school lives and dies,
right.
is through these test scores. And so the teachers that have these positions, they have to go to different meetings. There's different things you have to do. It's a little bit different. They like to say that we all share the responsibility, and in a way they do. But in another way, you kind of get that invested in the numbers, and
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
and that's fine. Um, but I've done that for 10 years, and it's a lot of stress for 10 years. And so I was looking to get out of that stress. And
Yep.
that's kind of why I left, was because I was offered a position to get out of that stress. Wasn't
Hmm.
the position I necessarily wanted, like I said, was not what I was looking for, but it ended up being, it's in there. Sorry. um, Ended up being what I accepted just because, got to pay bills.
Oh, yeah.
And
Totally.
I got there, and it was just like I said, a complete nightmare scenario. It was not.
Hmm.
I was promised one thing. I got there, and it was not that. I was immediately put it back into a position I into another EOC,
Oh, Lord.
but also with less support and less help,
Y-
and
yeah.
and classes of like 40 students, and so it was just very unmanageable. And it was one of those things where it's like, I think if I was a first or second year teacher, I probably would have tried to make it work for a while longer. But
Hmm.
like I said, almost 15 years in, I can tell what is and isn't working fairly quickly.
Right.
And I kind of knew that it was time to move on from that position rather fast. And I feel like getting out of there quickly kind of helped everybody in the long run. Gets them to get
Right.
somebody in there more permanent, because it was just going to be a problem if I was there permanently. And yeah, so
Yeah.
good
Well,
news
go.
is
Yeah.
moving on to something better, and hopefully less getting sick, and more talking about end of the world movies, which is what we're talking
Yep.
about tonight when we talk about motherfucking Planet of the Apes from 2001. Oh Lord. This is a film. So with
It
with
definitely
everything
exists.
with everything happening with this week, I didn't watch this until today. Be
Oh,
honest.
really?
We are recording on Wednesday, and I watched this today.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't have to go to work, because like I said, my email no longer works. So I'm
Oh,
no
yep.
longer an employee. So I was like, all right, well,
Oh, that makes it easier.
that's one way to let me know. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah, there you
no
go.
text, no email, just nope. You no longer exist. Get out of here. Like, okay, cool. Well, that works for me.
Yeah, really.
So I didn't have time to, with everything happening, didn't have time to watch this until today. But I did sit down
Hmm.
and I did watch it. Now I did do the research for it last week,
Right.
So we're gonna get into that, and I'm gonna try my best to talk about this movie without talking about the Charlton Heston original, because
Oh, that's gonna be so hard.
I feel like at some point we're going to go through all of the Apes movies because they're all related to end of the world,
They
apocalyptic,
sure are.
post-apocalyptic scenarios in one shape, form, or another. And there's a lot of them.
Yes,
We
there are.
have the originals. We have this failed
Yes.
remake, which
Hmm.
as we get to it, you'll find out later. I wrote a sequel to this movie.
Oh,
Yeah, I wrote the sequel. I got it here. We'll talk about it.
yeah.
And then there are the modern remakes, the four of them that have
Yes.
come out with James Franco in the first one, and then Andy
Hmm.
Serkis in the kind of taking the lead, and the rest of them
Yeah.
from there. So let's get into
And
this
I don't
movie,
know
I
if I,
guess. Oh, good.
yeah, I was gonna say, and I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but uh, the original Planet of the Apes movies are about some of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, yeah,
I
they're
Yeah,
up
like
there. They're
yeah.
great.
So yeah, this one was very painful for me. It was a painful
So
reminder because of course I've seen it a bunch of times, but oh,
as a gentleman and a scholar, and as a red gentleman, I have a
mhm,
thesis that I'm going to put forward with this movie. It's not good, but
mhm.
it's not as bad as people say it is.
That's fair.
Okay. That's my thesis going in. It might be a shitty thesis, but this is a shitty movie, so I think it's fair. So,
Apropos, very
yeah.
appropriate.
So obviously this is a remake of the original with Charlton Heston, Planet of the Apes. It
Ooh,
was an
heavy
amazing
asterisk on that.
yeah, heavy asterisk on remake. More like reimagination.
I would say, yeah, I'm down with that.
So, yeah. So this movie had a developmental hell. Like they started thinking about doing another Apes movies like in the late 90s.
Oh, okay.
Originally attached to it was Adam Rifkin, who was an independent film director who they thought could make it on the cheap.
Hmm.
He had a sequel which was going to be kind of like his version was going to be a sequel, an alternative sequel to the first movie. That was he was going to do, and he
Okay.
was going to set it where the apes had evolved into like Roman gladiatorial type thing. Never
Hmm.
happened. Got canceled by Fox. Um,
Ah.
Virtually every big director you can think of from the late 80s, early 90s has been associated with this movie at some point, with maybe the notable exception of Scorsese and Tarantino and maybe George
Hmm.
Lucas. Peter Jackson was on board at one point, and then that
Oh.
didn't happen. He left to go do Heavenly Creatures and Lord of the Rings.
Huh.
Around 1993, Oliver Stone got connected, but at a certain time,
Oh.
Sam Raimi was also involved.
Oh, how great would
Um,
a Sam Raimi Planet of the Apes movie have
so
been?
yeah, Sam Raimi would have done an amazing version. There
Oh,
definitely would have been
absolutely.
a scene where the camera was super low to the ground and snaking
Hmm.
along very fast. It would have been amazing.
Oh, so
Um, Oliver Stone's version would have had some kind of connection with the apes to the Bible.
yeah.
That's where he was going to take it, and his version was going to star Arnold, the governor.
Oh.
Yes, 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 yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. It was
I
weird.
don't. I don't
But
hate that.
so during this particular part of it, I was reading that apparently Fox, the studio, was adamant that there had to be a scene where apes were playing fucking baseball. Like, but not doing it correctly. Like maybe there wasn't a pitcher there, or maybe they were holding the bats upside down. But they really wanted this scene of apes playing baseball, which immediately made me think of Planet of the Apes, Bad News Bears crossover.
Oh. Ooh.
Bad News Bears go to the Planet of the Apes. Walter Matthau like chain smoking
Yes.
as fucking the Bears play the Apes in a game of Little League. That would be an amazing fucking movie.
That would
Okay.
be an amazing movie.
That's a different sequel for a different time.
Right.
Not the one I wrote, but they were really wanting this in there. It didn't happen,
Yeah,
obviously.
I was gonna say
Um,
I'm trying to
but
rack my brain.
but but when we get to the plot of the movie, we will reference this. Oh, and before we get too far, and we're already 20 minutes in, but Travis might dip out at some points during this recording, because he's experiencing a little bit internet issues at this point. And so
Yeah,
if that
it's all
happens,
wonky here.
you'll just hear me talk for a little bit, and we'll get it back him when we can.
Hmm.
So Stone gets out of it. James Cameron is in for a little bit. That would have been a
Ooh.
crazy version.
Would have had a strong female lead.
Yes, 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 it would have. Yeah. Roland Emmerich, the guy who did Day After
Oh,
Tomorrow, was involved for a little while. Michael Bay was involved for at some point.
would have been a lot of
Um,
blue and what is it, like blue and orange
yes, a
color
lot of blue and
tones. That would have
orange.
been,
There would have been
yeah.
a lot of car flipping.
Yes.
A lot of that. So around the year 1999, Tim Burton gets involved and signs on. And when he signs on, they initially give him a budget of 200 million, but then immediately want him to lower it to 100 million.
Oh no.
And this is interesting because this is in 1999. He's got $100 million budget. Tim Burton in his most recent movie with Beetlejuice, also $100 million budget, but that's a considerable difference in years there.
Oh yeah,
So,
that is.
yeah. So, one of the things considered in the script in the Tim Burton's initial phase was the apes. Don't mind me just stopping in to say hey and thanks for listening to the podcast. Hopefully, you've enjoyed it and are finding it fun and interesting to hear us talk weekly about the end of the world and a hopefully less than horrific viewpoint. Try to make it a little bit fun, some levity as we talk about these kind of depressing movies. And yeah, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and keep listening. Thank you so much. And back to the show. Yeah, so it was one of those movies where sets kept getting changed, scripts
Yeah.
kept getting changed, all the way up until like they were already filming and making things, and stuff was still getting changed.
Oh Lord.
So it was, yeah, it was one of those kind of things. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
They were filming, and there was, so it wasn't really an onset issue, but it was definitely an issue of political disagreement. Tim Roth is in this,
Yes.
and so is Charlton Heston. And
Yes.
Tim Roth is not a fan of the NRA. Not at all.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't
Yeah.
actually know that.
Yeah. So Tim Roth apparently didn't know Charlton Heston was going to be in this. And had he known, he would have just chosen not to participate in this film, which I
Hmm.
think would have made the movie worse because Tim Roth is amazing in this.
Absolutely. I was about to
He's
say.
he's one of the best characters in this whole movie.
Oh yeah.
The way he turns and mugs and like grimaces and snakes all over the place is amazing.
Oh, it's a
It's fucking
beautiful thing.
amazing. But the studio was also pushing Tim Burton to work faster, to continue to work quickly with a lower budget because they already had a date that it was coming out, and they weren't
Oh.
interested in changing that date.
Oh.
So yeah, it was one of those kind of movies. Um, it did make a lot of money. It made its budget back and then some. It was one of the more successful movies of its time. Ended up making
Mhm.
$360 million worldwide. Made $68 million in its opening weekend, which was the second highest a weekend of the year, which is kind of a
Oh,
big deal.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it had its own toy line from Hasbro. Do you remember the toys?
Feel like I might remember the toys.
I kind of remember the toys as well. Like 2000. So this came out in 2001. We recorded last week's episode. We were talking about 2001.
Oh yeah. Oh
We're
goodness.
back in 2001 again. Yep, yep, yep. And this one, yeah. Um, I kind of remember the toys because I would have been like in almost high school. I would have been like eighth, ninth grade, something like that. So I wouldn't have been buying toys, wasn't buying
Mhm.
them at that age. But I kind of remember going to like Walmart, Target, seeing the packages,
Right.
and kind of remember those.
I
Um,
feel like I've seen them at least because I would have been
yeah,
18 at that time. So
yeah. So same, probably not buying toys.
yeah, right.
It also had a Dark Horse comic book tie-in. Ooh, bumped the mic. Sorry about that. Yeah, it had a Dark Horse comic book tie-in. And weirdly enough, for its time, it had a geocaching kind of tie-in called
Oh.
Project Ape, where there were little hidden little caches around the country where you could, and they give you little hints to go unlock them. And I don't
Ooh.
know if all of them were found, if there's still some around. No idea. No
Ooh.
idea. It had a video game tie-in that came out for the PC and PlayStation, and it had a separate video game tie-in for the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Color, made by Ubisoft. I remember renting the game on the PlayStation. It sucked.
Hmm.
It fucking sucked.
Oh,
It was
see,
awful.
I never got my hands on any of the games.
Yeah, no. Well, there aren't that many Planet of the Apes games. I think there's only like a
Yeah.
couple. There was apparently one, I think for the Atari, that was supposed to came out. That was supposed to come out and never did. And
Uh,
then I don't think there was another game until this one. And I don't know if there's been a tie-in to the recent movies. I've seen two of the recent movies. I have not seen the other two, the most recent one or the one before that,
uh,
War of the Planet of the Apes and Kingdom of the
yeah,
Planet of the Apes. I have not seen those yet.
I've seen all of
Um,
them, but
have you?
I love Planet of the Apes. I hit something there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this of course I saw it, but it didn't impress me. But
Yeah. So
but I
I did not see
definitely
this in
saw it when it
theaters.
came out.
Okay, so I did not see this in theaters, but I did see it when it was on HBO. This was one
Hmm.
of those movies that showed on HBO all the fucking time.
Yeah,
Because this was a big budget movie. Like
it was.
they wanted you to see this, and it made a lot of money, enough that you would think that there would be a sequel. And when we get to the ending, which everyone fucking hates the ending, when we get to the ending, it definitely lays out the ending for a sequel.
Right.
So
Which, thank goodness.
I guess we'll just I was trying to think of like an ape or a monkey pun to like transition into how the story starts, but I can't think of anything. I'm not that clever.
Will fling the poo over to. No, that's no. Nope. That one fell flat.
Well, the first thing that when you see this
Oh,
movie,
I just got it.
go
I
ahead,
have
go
the
ahead.
perfect.
What you got?
Let's get our damn dirty hands on the plot.
Jesus Christ, that's beautiful.
I
Yep.
know.
Speaking of the plot, before we get to the plot, let's talk about the cast. This movie has a
Oh,
fucking
yes.
amazing cast.
It really
And I guess we
does.
should talk about the director. So eventually, like we talked about Tim Burton, um, a famous director. He's still
Hmm.
making movies to this day. Do you have a favorite Tim Burton movie?
If it's not the original Beetlejuice,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I, I think that might be it though, because I mean, Edward Scissorhands came along. That came around a lot. I watched it a lot,
Yeah.
but I don't think I watched anything as much as Beetlejuice.
So I would say my favorite movie of his is Ed Wood,
Oh, okay,
because
yeah,
I think
I
Johnny
get
Depp
that.
is hilarious in it.
Hmm.
Um, Beetlejuice is an amazing movie. I really love
Yes.
Beetlejuice, but Ed Wood I think is probably my favorite movie of his.
Hmm.
And let's get into the cast, and we can go cast by, person by person. First one, Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes.
She is in this. Michael Clark Duncan,
Yes.
and then we
R.I.P.
have Tim Roth. Do you have a favorite Tim Roth movie?
Favorite Tim Roth movie? Oh
Yeah,
man, I mean, Reservoir Dogs is really high up there.
that's a good one.
Um, him and Rob Roy was really good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Opposite Liam Neeson, he played a really like he was pretty psychotic in that. I liked that a lot. Which is he's really good at. He's really good at
Yes,
playing psychotic.
he is very good at playing psychotic. Obviously, Reservoir Dogs. He's amazing in.
Yes.
He was also really good in the Hateful Eight. I was gonna say he was good in another Tarantino
Oh
movie that he came
yeah.
back through. As a he so the most fucked up movie I've ever watched was a movie he directed called The War Zone. Have you ever seen The War Zone?
I don't think I've seen the War Zone.
So The War Zone came out in 1999, and it was directed by Tim Roth, and it stars Ray Winstone and Tilda Swinton.
Oh okay.
And it's about a family that moves, and they're kind of going through a lot of changes in their lives, and then at the same time these things are happening. The 15-year-old boy realizes that his dad is raping his sister, committing incest.
Oh
And so the movie gets into how the family and everything that happens between them, and eventually the kind of conclusion of all of that. It is a hard movie to watch. It is a
yeah.
difficult movie to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds.
but it is an emotional movie, and it is very very
Hmm.
well made. And so I love the Warzone
Yeah.
as just watching him as a director, because I think he did really great. I think he should do more movies as a director. I wish he would do more movies. Um, another Oh, that was gonna transition. That was gonna be. I can't do that transition. We would get sued. Next up, we got
Oh,
Mark. We got Mark Wahlberg. What's your favorite
Mark
Mark
Wahlberg.
Wahlberg? What's your favorite Mark Wahlberg movie?
Oh God. I mean, if I'm gonna give a real answer, it's definitely The Departed.
The
Like
Departed.
The Departed. Like definitely that one.
That's a great one.
Uh,
That's a great one.
it's a
Have you ever?
great one. I mean, it's so you're like full on Mark Wahlberg, you know?
So
And
Mark Wahlberg is an interesting actor, and this is where we're gonna have to transition because so when we lived together is right around the time The Departed came out.
hmm
And this is also for some reason, I don't remember why, you and I got really into South Boston culture.
Yes,
And
absolutely yes. It's still my favorite accent.
it's a great
I
one.
do it. I'm fighting it right now. I may not win that fight.
You're gonna slip in. It's gonna happen.
It's gonna slip.
Yeah. So yeah, so like The Departed came out around that time, and
hmm
he's good in that movie. So the thing with Mark Wahlberg
Yes.
is I feel like he's good in some movies and he's terrible in other movies.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
just depends on how the director uses him.
Exactly.
He is one of the like in Boogie Nights, he's great.
He's amazing.
In Fear, he's great. The
Yes.
Departed, great.
hmm
The Happening,
The Happening.
maybe not so much.
Not so much. What was it?
The
Transformers. I don't know. I didn't watch any
Transformers.
Transformers except the one he was in.
Well,
So.
they're better than the Shia LaBeouf one. Same director, but
Oh,
at
okay.
least
Yeah.
they're a little bit better. Pain and Gain, he's great.
Pain and Gain is amazing.
He's good when he plays like bumbling idiots
hmm
or like tough guys who maybe talk a
Yes.
lot of shit but don't have
Yeah.
to back it up.
Right.
Because the moment he doesn't play menacing super well unless he's like a
Mhm.
high school bully. Like he can do that
Yeah.
pretty well.
Exactly.
But like he doesn't play like super menacing very well. For some
No.
reason, anytime you a lot of directors want to make him a fucking scientist or
That
like
throws
involved in
me.
science or astronomy, and I don't understand that at all because he doesn't seem like he would be good at that.
No.
Um,
No.
so in this movie, he talks about that a little bit. In The Happening, he does that. He's supposed to be a science
Yes.
teacher. He's the goddamn world's worst fucking science teacher
Oh,
in that
that.
movie.
Oh, I think as a teacher, I'm sure that blow like just frustrates you to
It's
watch.
I sometimes I'll quote it because none of the high school kids I teach know it. So
Oh, of course.
I'll just like slip in little references and be, hey guys, isn't it cool that and then, like
Well, and also it's funny because he's a science teacher, but he talks about how mysterious and how unscientific things are in the real world. It's like, would a scientist like a science teacher talk like that?
I have no idea. Who
Oh,
knows?
but and then
uh
of course in Transformers, whenever because he's an
Transformers.
inventor from
He's an invent
Texas.
from Texas, yes. You look
Yeah,
at Mark Wahlberg's accent and you think Texas.
yeah. Oh, and he does nothing to drop the South Boston at all.
No, of course not. Why should he?
No, no accent.
Another Mark Wahlberg movie that is popular in my home because my wife hates it
Oh,
is the movie Rockstar.
oh, really?
Yes, because she too much tongue, too much tongue.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's one of those movies that we watched and we were like maybe an hour in and she was like, how much longer is this movie? And I paused it and I was like another hour and a half and she was like, I'm
Oh.
not, turn this off. I can't do this. I can't do Mark Wahlberg for this long. So she did not watch this one with me. She was like, no, I'm not watching any more fucking Mark Wahlberg movies. And the last person that we should talk about, I guess, is and maybe the best person in this fucking movie is Paul Giamatti.
Oh, the
Paul
most
fucking
recognizable.
yes, he stands out. You can immediately tell which ape is Paul
Mhm.
Giamatti. Somehow, I don't know how, but he has the most expressive face ever. Um, do you have a favorite Paul Giamatti movie? Because I've got several.
Oh man, oh he's so good in like everything he does, but he's always just like this tortured normal guy who just hates himself. It's the best. Obviously Sideways is really good, obviously.
Yes, yes.
I haven't seen the newest one yet, that Holdovers. I've heard it's
Oh,
really good, but I
very,
haven't seen
very.
it.
It is very fucking good.
Yeah. See, I need that.
It was my favorite movie last year. A lot of people talked about, Oppenheimer, Barbie, whatever. Holdovers was my favorite movie last year.
Oh,
It's about a teacher who works in a private school, and
Mhm.
for boys, for like wealthy boys, and he decides to take on the responsibility of staying over the Christmas break with the kids that don't have anywhere to go home to.
Oh, I get it.
And so
Holdover.
yeah, the holdovers.
Yeah.
And it's him bonding with this kid, and
Mhm.
yeah, he's it's an amazing movie, and he's great in it.
Yeah.
Another great movie is from I said a couple of years ago. It's probably like almost fucking 30 years old or 20 years
Oh.
old. American Splendor, where he plays Harvey
Uh-huh.
Picar. That movie is great. That's another one of those movies
Yes.
that me and my wife both owned a copy of before we knew each other, and we met, and then we like
Oh,
moved
yeah.
in together, and we were like, oh, we both own American Splendor. Like, yeah,
Nice.
that's a great movie.
It is. Private Parts was really funny. I liked whenever he was playing that. Fun fact about him playing Private Parts, just a tangent off on Paul Giamatti. He
Hmm.
didn't realize at first that that was a real guy he was playing, and found out that he was playing it pretty accurately, and he was kind of a little distraught. He was like, "Oh, that's upsetting." So yeah, um, I don't know, yeah, he did a lot of like side stuff. Like he was in the Truman Show, but he played a sidekick to Ed Harris's character. Saving
Yeah,
Private
he was
Ryan, he
in
was in that.
Man on
Yeah.
the Moon. He was Bob Zamuda.
Oh,
To
that was
Jim
awesome.
Carrey's Andy Kaufman.
Big Mama's
He's
House.
Big Mama's House. Yeah, yeah. He's in Saving Private Ryan. He's in Truman Show. Private Parts,
Big,
like you said.
yeah.
He's been in a
Big
lot of
Fat
movies. A
Liar
lot of
with old
Big Fat Liar with
Frankie Muniz.
Frankie Muniz. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, thankfully he doesn't have to do the kids movie so much anymore.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
So I guess now that we've talked about the cast and we talked about the
Mhm.
director and we talked about the background of the development of this movie, let's get into the plot of this movie. And we will see immediately this is not much of a remake. It is kind of its own
It's
weird fucking thing.
it is, which it kind of is its saving grace for me, honestly,
Yeah, yeah. It makes it interesting
because
because it stands alone as its own thing.
hmm
So, the first note I have is the movie starts and I'm 10 seconds in and I already got the monkey as the better actor here.
yes, absolutely.
And Mark Wahlberg is many things. Anything involving science, he is not. He should stay
No,
away.
oh, it's very unconvincing. Kind of
So,
like when they did Tara Reid as a scientist. Same
exactly.
feeling.
Basically, yeah, he should put glasses on. That's what he's not doing right.
That's what he's not doing right.
God damn it, Mark. You're ruining these fucking movies with just a little bit of wardrobe.
Uh,
So Mark is fucking with the apes, and he's
yep.
basically shit talking them. And then all of a sudden, it's been like 6 minutes into this movie, so we got something that needs to happen, which is kind of the way this movie is written. Is about
Yeah.
every like 5 to 10 minutes, something happens, shit blows
Something.
up. So the movie keeps moving. It's not like a boring movie. Things keep
No.
happening. So a storm has moved in and they need to send Pericles. That's the monkey. That's the ape. I'm going to
Yeah.
say monkey sometimes. They're going to send Pericles in. He's basically the canary into this shitty movie is the coal mine. So he's going to get sent in, and lo and behold, he maybe dies, but everyone
Yeah.
seems very calm about it. No one seems to be bothered really.
Yeah.
They're
Really.
just like, oh, the ape might have died, and Mark's like, oh, I guess I better go check on it.
Yeah.
If he's supposed to be sad, he's not showing it.
No.
Like that's
It's
that's I don't know if that's the fault of the writing or the directing or the acting. I don't know, but somewhere along the way, it's very unconvincing.
right.
So Marky Mark, he decides to get into his spaceship and he goes in to save the ape and ruin this
hmm
movie. Um, and as he goes in, lo and behold, he also gets sucked up into the storm and crashes onto a strange land. And
Yes.
thank God he immediately can take his hat off, his mask off, and he can breathe and isn't immediately suffocate and die.
Yes.
And he just so happens to immediately also meet some fellow white people, like within
Sure.
seconds, like within seconds. Like he literally crashes. He gets out of the water. He takes his helmet off. He's like, ah, yes, I can breathe. Holy shit, white people. That's about as fast as it takes. The apes attack. We get our first look at the apes, and we're
Yep.
not getting CGI. These are apes in costumes.
hmm
And some of the costumes are nice, and some of
Yes.
them are kind of silly looking. It just kind of depends on
Yeah.
which one you're looking at. So all the humans are captured, and Mark is trying to figure out where he's at, and this is where we get the scene. So as the carton of humans is being dragged through town on their
Yep.
little train, we see in the background. Do you see what the apes are doing? Did you see it? Did you fucking
Oh,
see it?
which when they're in the background?
When they're in the background, it happens for just a few seconds.
Oh, you might have to refresh my memory because I
They're
didn't watch
playing.
it today.
They're apes. There's about 5 or 6 apes,
Oh wait.
and they're playing basketball.
Oh no.
So we didn't get the apes playing baseball, but god damn it, we got the
There
apes
was
playing sports.
compromise.
Somebody
Oh.
compromised. Somebody compromised. The next big
Oh
thing
boy.
we're introduced to is Paul Giamatti's character, and you can immediately tell it's Paul
Yes.
Giamatti, like we
Oh yeah.
said.
Immediately.
Immediately tell it's Paul Giamatti. We also get introduced to Ari, who is the pro-human ape, which is played by
Hmm.
Helena Bonham Carter, who had at this point in time was not married to Tim Burton, or but they would shortly get together shortly after this. So,
Hmm.
um, she is weird in this movie,
Yes.
oddly sexual for an ape for a person in an ape outfit. Um,
Yeah.
crosses some lines of furriness at times that I
Hmm.
did not want to be crossed.
Yeah. No. There was a lot of
She
uncomfortable.
she kisses him at one point. Lots of
Yeah.
like hair flipping and like she at one point she delivers dialogue by like peeking through like a broken like piece of fabric and
Yeah.
just like chewing the scenery galore. There's a lot of
Hmm.
scenery chewing in this movie. A lot.
Oh.
Which I think is what makes this movie great is that it's one of those movies that you can tell that people spent a lot of money on and it's not
Hmm.
very good. But I think all of the actors in it know it's not very good. So they're all
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
hamming it up, being
Hmm.
as cringy as possible, and it is great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So Ari is pro-human, and she
Hmm.
sees the two of them being taken, and she's immediately wants to try to save Marky Mark and his funky bunch. So we immediately see some apes sitting down to pray, and they are all praying to Semos, and we learn more about who Semos is. He's basically
Yep.
their ape Jesus.
Yep.
And we also meet Tim Roth, who plays the antagonist in this film.
Oh yeah.
And Tim Roth has a tendency to, whenever he's talking in this movie, everything is accompanied with a very dramatic turn and a frail of teeth.
Oh yes.
Everything. Like everything, every single sentence he says, I'm gonna go drink a tequila, is accompanied with like a little. I don't know if it doesn't translate way to audio, but facially wise, I'm turning my
Yeah.
head to into the microphone.
Yeah.
Yes, it's weird. It's a weird acting choice. I don't know who
It,
went with
it's
it, but it makes sense to someone.
it's like he found out that one of the things that chimps do when they're like displaying, I guess one of their displays is showing teeth, and it's sort of
Oh yeah,
it's like a danger response or something like that.
makes
And I
sense.
guess he just ran with that, and he's like, "That's the
Oh,
mannerism."
I'm sure Tim Roth did a lot of research into this film. I'm sure he did. I'm surprised Tim Roth didn't go live with the apes for a few months if given the option.
Go
Feel
full
like he
method.
would. Full method. Full method. So the humans get two of the humans, Mark and the female human whose name I literally do not know. Did you get her name? I didn't write it
No,
down.
it was not. No, because like
At some point, he
it
makes
was.
out with her at the end for no goddamn reason,
Yeah,
other
no,
than I think to fix the awkwardness of the other kiss that comes before that one. We'll get to
yeah.
that. We'll get to that. Um, so yeah, Ari Helena Bonham Carter, she buys these humans to save them from Paul Giamatti.
Hmm.
Um, so they're basically living with her, and Mark decides he wants to lead a slave revolt, and
Yes.
so he does, and him and his funky bunch, they are able to escape with the help of some of the apes, and they get all the way back to where he crashed his ship at.
Yes.
And my next note here is thank God Paul Giamatti is in this movie because he
Yes.
shows up and he gets captured and is forced to go along with them. And I really think that was a wise choice because I feel like if Paul Giamatti was not allowed to go along with them and interject comedy, this movie
Hmm.
would be unbearable.
Oh, absolutely.
Paul Giamatti saves this fucking movie,
Absolutely.
which is
Oh,
why when we get to the sequel, you'll see what I did.
okay.
So Tim Roth learns the truth about humans and guns, and
Mm-hmm.
this is an awkward scene because Charlton Heston is playing Tim Roth's Apes father. That's a
Yeah,
mouthful to say.
it
Tim
is.
Roth's character's father is played by Charlton Heston. I don't know why I said it in the most awkward way possible. You'll forgive me. That's the tequila talking.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna cough for a second. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So, Charlton Heston and yeah, like I said, Charlton Heston and Tim Roth did not get along. Tim Roth would not have done this movie if he knew Charlton Heston was going to be in it. Charlton Heston being in it is kind of supposed to be a little cameo surprise, and you don't
Yeah,
really see that it's Charlton Heston because he looks like an ape. He's got the full costume on. The only
yeah,
way you know it's him is because he does do the line, which he, you know, he does a modification of the line.
right.
Damn them all to hell,
Yeah, he does do that.
and
Which,
then he dies.
and then he dies.
But before he dies, he tells his son, Tim Roth, about the truth about humans, that they were once in charge of apes. He has his
Hmm.
son break this vase that they have for some
Yeah.
reason, and inside the vase is a gun. So there you go. Very
There you go.
there's the NRA
You know.
message.
So, and then following with that, like reimagining of the "Damn Them All to Hell," you also get the reimagining of the "Get your hands off me" or your hands off me, you damn dirty." In
Yes,
this case, human.
human. Yes, Michael Clark Duncan does do that. It's one of the
Yes.
first things he says. And Michael Clark Duncan in this movie, R.A.P. Um,
Yes.
he is great
He is
because
great.
similarly, I think he knows that this is a shitty movie
Yeah.
and he's just having fun at a certain point.
Absolutely. And he definitely
It's
understood the character idea. Like his character was very much like he's a zealot, he is led, he's very he's very deep in the belief, he's
yes.
gonna stay with it. Yeah, he very much keeps to that. And it's very
Um,
nice. He does it very well.
excuse me.
Mhm.
He reminds me of another character from another movie we've already talked about. He is playing a very similar character to the one Forrest Whitaker plays in Battlefield Earth.
Oh, okay. Yes.
He's
Oh,
kind
I
of the
see
hint,
it.
the side man who is
Mm-hmm.
following along, maybe kind of knows this is not going to work out, but he's going to follow along. And at the end, he does a little kind of he plays his hand
Yeah.
once he finds out the truth. Once he finds out what's really going on here. A little different, but similar.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
so basically, the plot of the movie kind of unfolds like this: Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch of Humans and Paul Giamatti taken as captive, and we have Ari chewing up the scenery the whole way. They're traveling, following this blinking beacon that Mark thinks is going to lead him to his rendezvous point, so he
Yes.
can get off of this movie. Um, I did write down the dialogue between Tim Roth and Michael Clark Duncan is just fucking awful.
Right.
Awful. Tim Roth tells Michael Clark Duncan his father dies, and Michael Clark Duncan says, "Your father was a great leader. You are a descendant of Semos, and now you must lead." That's it. Just giving us
That's
a lot
yeah.
of exposition, and Tim Roth just
Yeah.
kind of looks at him and says, "Yes, I agree." So the apes are getting ready for war. So Marky Mark and the group are trying to chew up scenery as they follow a blinking light at the end of the movie, and the apes are getting ready to confront them and kill them. Um, and that's basically how the movie kind of unfolds
Yes.
until we get to almost the end where Marky Mark finds what they were looking for. He finally finds his old ship, which is
Yes.
not exactly what he thought it was going to be. He gets there and he realizes that the ship crash landed looking for him years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
he realizes that he's gone either forward or backward in time. I don't even know if he really knows at this point, but
Yeah.
he knows that he's in a different timeline. And the timelines of this movie is how we get to the end of it, where this movie kind of eventually ties into the apocalypse. Eventually,
Yes.
it takes a long fucking time, but it sets up the groundwork for it. So in
Yes.
my sequel, we'll get more into that.
Right.
Um, so he gets to the ship and he accesses the visual log and he's able to figure out what exactly happened. The apes took
Mm-hmm.
over, led by Semos. The humans, the humans, when the humans find this out, they all come to visit Marky Mark and he has a big pilgrimage. He's basically the human Jesus. Um,
Yes.
but fuck all that religious shit. The apes are coming and we have another
Yeah.
ape attack. Uh, and yeah. So far, thoughts on the movie?
So it's almost like they sacrificed like I understand why they wanted the costumes to look good as a stark contrast, but I feel like they lost a lot of charm with that.
Yeah.
This movie is not a very charming movie at all.
No.
Yeah, it's about as charismatic as, well, Mark Wahlberg, but well, no, that's not true. He's very charismatic. I like watching him. That's not true at all.
I
But
would say like on the scale of Tim Burton movies, I'd maybe put this at like Batman Returns. Oh,
yeah,
did we lose you?
no, oh, I don't.
Okay. I don't know
Yeah, I
what
don't
that
think
was.
so.
We got a little beep
Okay.
information. All right. Well,
Oh,
continue.
did it? Mhm.
For just a second.
Oh
I don't
man,
know what it was
I'm
doing there.
self-censoring. The uh, I would say, yeah, definitely put this movie pretty low on the list of, like, Tim Burton movies.
Yeah.
But I see where they were going. I see what they were trying to do, what they were trying to reimagine here. Um, Definitely a nod, but also a departure. They were trying to distance from the original,
Yeah. Which I
while
think was
still,
a good idea.
yeah, and definitely was a good idea on this one, especially
Yeah.
because they were trying to redo it, and especially for a new generation of people, who may not have been like me and just totally gravitated toward the first movies,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that weren't so familiar. I mean, everybody's familiar with it, but um, don't really care about it as much. So I get that. Uh, for me, a lot of the movie is very claustrophobic, like with the set pieces. It's
Yeah.
very closed in. Um, except towards the end where it's very open. But while they're in the Ape City, it's like it just felt like a labyrinth. Like I couldn't really get my bearings. I didn't know
Yeah.
what was
That's
going.
fair.
Like it was just very closed set pieces. Very, I don't know. I just felt, I don't know, trapped. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Which
I
maybe that's
understand
what they
that.
were going for, because it was like a, like you said, a slave revolution. So maybe they were going for that. Maybe they were going for that, like, confined feeling, that, like, suffocating feeling. But
I feel like
I,
part of that is the budget being cut in half, going
yeah, I
from
was about to
200
say
million
that's.
to 100 million, the script literally changing all the way up until the process of making and hiring actors. Like I feel like you can tell this movie was kind of just a mess,
Yes.
and I feel like that shows in literally every single part of it. Because there's so many plot holes, there's so many
Oh,
things that do not make sense. But I kind of enjoy this movie in a
yeah.
way. It definitely tickles that so bad it's good urge, because
Yes.
you can tell that some effort did go into this.
Hmm.
So it's not like an asylum mode movie where it's made to
Right.
be bad or anything like
Right.
that. It's kind of intentionally made to be good. It's just they
Hmm.
miss the mark horribly, and in a way, it's kind of admirable. Um,
Yeah,
because
I
I
think
think at
so.
the very least there's some things you can enjoy. Like Tim Roth is fantastic in this.
Oh,
He is great.
very.
He's like he does his best Nicolas Cage. He's just gonna go full fucking ham.
Oh
Paul
yeah.
Giamatti is great. Helena
Oh yeah.
Bonham Carter is just chewing up scenery.
Absolutely.
Mark Wahlberg has no idea what fucking movie he's in tonally. Um,
Exactly.
it's a weird movie, but it's I kind of like it. So
Yeah.
diving back into the plot, Ari sneaks out. She goes to meet with Tim Roth's ape character, and she
Hmm.
basically offers herself to him. There's a whole subplot going on where they're kind of in this weird, like he wants
Yeah.
her, she maybe wants him relationship that is only really ever referenced two or three times and
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like you could
No.
completely remove that, and I don't think it would change anything.
No.
That whole thing does not go well, and she ends up getting branded, the brand that they give to the humans to mark that they
Hmm.
were slaves. So she goes back and is hanging out with Marky Mark, and he sees the mark, and at the same time he sees the mark, the ship all of a sudden turns on, and Mark, he's got himself a plan
Yep.
to defeat the apes, but it's gonna take a little bit of work. So we have at the end of the movie, almost end of the movie, we have the war. Nope, they can't call it that. That's a different movie. The battle.
Yep.
Never mind, can't do that.
Nope,
the
nope.
the skirmish of the apes.
There you go.
The skirmish of the apes. Yes, I will say that this fight scene is fucking amazing. It is the
Yes.
silliest goddamn thing in the world. Apes just go flying like springs in their feet
Yes.
on top of things. It is absolutely fucking insane. The fights are silly because they fight like apes. So like Michael
Yeah.
Clark Duncan will jump on top of a character and just start pounding and beating the shit out of him.
Yes.
And
It's.
meanwhile, did you see Mark what Marky Mark was doing throughout this fight scene, how he was fighting?
I didn't know. Well, I guess I
Okay.
didn't. It didn't. It
It
wasn't
only
as remarkable.
it's not very remarkable because you only see him in a couple little bits here and there. It's he's
Hmm.
but ostensibly all he's doing is just walking around and just fucking like slugging apes in the fucking face. It's basically like he's on the streets of Boston just
Oh,
fucking
okay. Yeah.
punching people in the face. Just casually, kind of rather casually walking, just
Oh
fucking
Lord.
bitch ape and punches them. It just continues to go on. So the whole plan
Oh,
is basically to just like lure the apes in closer to the ship, and then they're going to use the ship's power to basically blow the apes up, and
yeah.
then they're going to just basically fucking slug it out and hope for the best. That's pretty much their plan,
Right.
and it's not going to work.
No.
Um, the only thing that really stops it from working, well, I guess along those lines, I wrote a couple notes about the fight that I thought were interesting, because
Hmm.
the fight, like I said, is absolutely fucking silly. Michael Clark
Yeah.
Duncan has his showdown with his rival that's been kind of progressing throughout the movie.
Hmm.
And they, like I said, they jump on top of each other and just beat the shit out of each other. Um, Ari saves the female human whose name we never really learn,
No.
and Marky Mark, like I said, just walks around punching apes in the face.
Yeah.
And then we get Deus Ex Apia
Yep.
because the lost ship from the first of the movie shows up, and it is Pericles, or as the apes call him, Simos. And
Yes.
so the fighting stops, and everyone kind of turns and looks at Simos, and Marky Mark walks over to him, takes Pericles' hand, and everything looks to be good, but Tim Roth is not satisfied, and he attacks.
Mhm.
And so we finally get the
Yes.
showdown between Marky Mark and Tim Roth inside of a cave as Pericles is thrown to the side and what looks to be hurt a little bit. It was actually kind of sad.
Yeah. If that one part, yeah, that
Yeah, that was
that
sad.
actually
That was sad. That
that
was sad.
sucked.
Yeah. So it looks like Tim Roth is going to win, but all of a sudden we realize that he has a gun. He's learned how to shoot the gun, but
Hmm.
Marky Mark knows how to use the systems of the computer, and he uses his hand,
Yes.
his fingerprint, to lock Tim Roth into his own tomb of his own doing. Um, Michael Clark Duncan, this is when he realizes that Tim Roth is wrong and is no longer
Hmm.
going to follow that path. And Tim Roth just keeps firing the gun over and over and over again until eventually
Hmm.
he kind of we see him as cowering underneath a part of the computer system, I guess, to just sit
Yeah.
there and die forever.
I guess so. Yeah.
But the end of the movie
I
gets
mean,
even more confusing with that.
yeah. Yeah.
So the movie is almost over. Pericles is okay. Marky Mark knows he needs to go home to act in other poorly and to act in other poorly made movies. Um, and this is where we get the scene where Marky Mark and Ari kiss. The
Yes.
and apparently this was a scene that a lot of people had some issues with.
Hard to imagine.
Hard to imagine why. Hard to imagine,
Yeah.
right? Marky Mark. At least they don't full on make out. It's a cute little
Yeah. It's.
it's a cute little kiss between a man and a female ape.
Yeah.
And then he, for some reason, goes and kisses the other female human, whose name I don't think he even knows.
No. No.
Also, how many days has he been here? Like, has it been a week? Maybe.
See that? Yeah. It's very unclear.
Very unclear.
And
Um,
and also like yeah, there's not a lot of weight to it. It's very
yeah.
much like he's there for a weekend.
So Paul Giamatti is now slinging pills to kids, and which I think is a great ending. And I think that the movie should have just ended there, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Instead, we get to the actual ending. Marky Mark gets back in his spaceship and he flies back into the storm, which sends him propelled back in time or forward in time. Either way,
Mhm.
he goes back in time because he went forward in time and now he's going back to the year 2001. Right? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
I think so. The
Well,
ending
I
is
think it's
confusing.
actually. I think it's supposed to be forward in ape evolution, I guess, or like ape
I
societal evolution.
so the ending makes no fucking sense. But here's what
No, it does
happens.
not.
So
You
he
could really
goes
say either way.
Yeah, he goes back to Earth. He crash lands right in front of the Lincoln Monument. He gets out,
Yeah.
and what does he see? He sees
It's
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, Abraham Lincoln has been replaced with General Thad. That's Tim Roth's character. So at
Yeah.
some point, General Thad, I guess you can presume when he was locked inside of his tomb in the ship, he, I guess, figured out how to take the ship back in time or forward in time. Because, I mean, he would have to go back to like is he supposed to
If,
be replacing Abraham Lincoln and everything Abraham Lincoln did, or is he just is
uh,
that just like is this just like, hey, we're putting him in here and it has no connection to Abraham Lincoln? And if that's the case, you could have just put him in any monument. Like you could have had him
yeah, I was about
crash
to
land
say.
in fucking Detroit and had him land there and had a statue of an ape.
Yeah, really.
So I don't understand if there's any if there's any I don't
Well,
understand.
well, I know exactly why they did it,
Yeah.
and well, because it was a
It's
like a
reference to the
different
first one.
take on
Yeah.
exactly.
The
It's
Statue of
just
Liberty. Yeah. Damn you all
yeah,
to hell. Um,
exactly.
so he sees this and immediately he is swarmed by police officers, press,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and they're all apes. And he realizes the world has been taken over by apes, and that is
Yes.
how we get to our post-apocalyptic scenario. That in this
Yeah.
movie, the world has been taken over by apes.
Yeah.
Does it make
Which
sense? No,
no.
not
Well,
fucking
you
at
see,
all.
and also it totally falls flat on the realization that it's supposed to be a future Earth because that's not clear.
It's not.
This
I
this could
think
very well
so.
just be another planet.
I feel like the ending is supposed to be set up for a sequel that was just never going to happen.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, we never get that sequel. Um,
It almost makes him like a tragic Greek hero who just like he's traveling and trying to get back to something, but he just keeps finding himself right back with another ape-run society,
it's true.
and so it's
So
he's a Sisyphus character
yeah,
basically. Like he
yeah.
just keeps rolling that ball up the hill.
I mean, we do have a reference. We know we get some Greek references with Pericles as reference
Hmm.
of the thing there of the ape, the main ape that we
Yeah.
are following along with. Speaking of going back in time, I just looked up. This movie came out on July 27th, 2001, so just a couple of months before September
Oh.
11th would happen. So,
Whoa.
number one song at the time was Usher's what is the Usher song? Some Usher song was number one. I don't know. I couldn't look it up. I clicked
I
it
was
way
gonna
too
say
fast.
back when I definitely wasn't listening to Usher back then.
No, I did look up
I
the
had
top rock song at the time, and the number one
yeah.
rock song was "Been a While" by Stained.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, that tracks.
Stained. So
That
I
that sounds about like my terrible taste in music back then.
final thoughts about this movie, and then I will get into my
Oh
sequel, and
yeah.
then we'll wrap up and move on to our next week's episode. So final thoughts. What do you think? Go ahead and say.
I think as a standalone movie, if and I know they had to make the nods to the original, but all it made me do was want to watch the original. So, um, on its own, not bad. I get it with all the troubles they had. Definitely makes sense. I think they were still very successful. They made a movie that they were looking to make. Uh, what falls flat on it? Not as big a failure as it could have been. All in all, it's better than it could have been, especially with everything that went on.
So I set up my thesis at the beginning where I said that I
Mm-hmm.
felt that this movie is kind of unfairly maybe targeted as being a really bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think in comparison to the first Planet of the Apes, yes, it is not very good.
Right.
If you compare it to the more modern Planet of the Apes movies, it is probably also not as good as those because the
Right.
CGI is a little bit more advanced now that we can kind of
Hmm.
make more interesting things. I'd
Well,
have
and
to go
also
back.
those.
Go ahead.
I think the more modern movies have a kind of. I think they handle the story a lot better than this movie did.
Yeah, yeah,
This movie tried to shove a lot of ideas, and also
a lot of
didn't
ideas.
have. Yeah, and it also kind of lost a lot of the symbolism. I know we wanted to sort of distance ourselves because eventually we'll probably talk about those, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
one of the things I would love to talk about is the symbolism of and the message of the original
yeah.
movie.
Oh, this movie has
Uh,
no message. This movie
no
has no
message at all.
message. Yeah,
It's
this is pure entertainment. This is pure turn your
exactly.
brain off and just enjoy the
Hmm.
nonsense. And as a pure popcorn movie, it works.
Yes,
It's not as bad as people say it is.
it's
It's
not.
not one of the worst movies of all time.
Oh, definitely
Um,
not.
it is a fun movie. It's a
I think
silly
so.
movie. It's not as good as the other Planet of the Apes movies. It does stand out as being one of the worst Planet of the Apes movies. But is it better than the second Planet of the Apes movie, which isn't that great? Or what is it? The fifth Planet of the Apes movie is also not all that great.
I'll
So
say if yeah, I was gonna say if you're gonna get into the original sequels,
yeah,
um,
some of those aren't that great either.
some of those are not that great. The third one is probably of the sequels is definitely my favorite.
Yeah,
Uh,
the third one's the best one.
yes. But then you get into the ones where what is it? Oh, what was his name? Oh, this is bad. Um, Roddy. Oh, what is his name? The guy that played Cornelius. But where
Um,
basically where he plays his own son
oh, okay,
in the
yeah, yeah,
movies.
yeah, yeah,
Those are a little painful. Like,
yeah.
uh, and then also, the what was it? The Battle of the Planet of the Apes or whatever.
Battle of the Planet of
Almost
the Apes.
incoherent.
Yeah.
It's, but I think the
So
modern movies handle that a lot better as far as like the developing the story of the Planet of the Apes, like
yeah,
how they develop. But this movie, as a standalone, it's it's a mess. It's somewhat confusing at times, like especially timeline wise,
yes,
and also are they they don't really make a big deal out of it being Earth, and it almost
no,
might not be,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that way it's a mess, but
It is.
it's a very entertaining mess.
It's a fun
It was
mess.
it's a
It's a fun
put
mess.
together mess.
So
So
my speaking of put together messes, here is my sequel to this movie. So this movie
I'm
sequel
excited.
baits hard, but it never gave you a sequel. And Tim Burton was not interested in making a sequel. He's making a lot of sequels and remakes of his movies. Did Frankenweenie remake? Did a Beetlejuice
Yeah.
sequel? He ain't touching this movie with a 10-foot fucking
No,
pole. He
not
wants
even close.
nothing to do with Planet of the Apes. It's not included in any of his anthology collections. It's one of those movies that I think he would rather you forget that he had anything to do with. So
Oh,
here is my take. I'm gonna call this one Odyssey of the Planet of the Apes.
nice.
Thank you. I thought it was a good title. I
Back to the Greek.
probably stole it from somewhere. So Marky Mark is taken captive and asked questions about his origins
Hmm.
by the apes. Pick up directly from where the last movie left off. Directly, right?
Hmm.
The apes, they're not buying his story. The President Kong, is directly involved because
Nice.
with the sudden appearance of a human, we also have a pro-humanist separatist movement of apes that is sprung up
Oh.
and protesting the president. So the president is directly involved in this, and he has an issue with Marky Mark. Mark, what do you do with Marky Mark? What do you do with an alien that lands in your planet? You send that, especially at this time, because we're doing this movie. We're like this movie came out in 2001, so we're getting a sequel coming out fast. We got the toys already made.
Hmm.
2003, we're starting this.
Ooh.
2003, and this budget, 50 million. We don't have much of a cast. We're doing this on the cheap. So Marky Mark is going to get sent to Guantanamo Bay. Um,
Oh, yeah.
he's
Yep.
going to get rescued. He's getting rescued by Paul Giamatti. So Paul Giamatti's character
Awesome.
from the first movie receives a distress call when Marky Mark crashed. So he's able to see everything that happens because back home he's things are happening for him. He was messing around with the pod before he left, so we can
Oh
kind of do
yeah.
some plausible deniability there that he maybe took a
Hmm.
distress beacon thing out of there. Who knows? That's what we're going with. So Paul Giamatti is able to get Mark out of Guantanamo Bay. They make their way back to DC. Here is how they make their way back to DC. We're putting allusions galore to our favorite movies involving apes. So Paul Giamatti playing an ape, and Mark
Hmm.
Wahlberg, they steal a big rig truck and they drive to DC, and we get a BJ and the Bear reference.
Oh, I like where this is going because then you can go Clint Eastwood style, every which
Good,
way but loose,
good,
because that was
yes,
also an orangutan. Oh,
it's true.
amazing.
Lot of different outlets we have here.
Oh, yes.
So
I like this.
Paul is able to help Mark convince the Earth apes that his story is legit, and he is too legit. Turning the page on my script. Um, but the president is still not buying it. And in a show
Hmm.
of power, he challenges Mark to a sword fight.
Ooh.
Mark, wishing peace between man and ape, says no. But he is given no choice when the president attacks, and on live TV, in front of millions of his fellow apes, the president attempts to kill a human.
Oh.
Mark survives the assault and once again spares the life of President Kong. Feeling moved by what they have witnessed, the apes all over the world free the humans, and we hard cut to 2 years later.
Ooh.
Paul Giamatti is now president, and he is reading the Emancipation Proclamation for humans. Everyone cheers. Mark is happy, single tear, but he knows that this is not his home. He decides to
Hmm.
make another trip, this
Yeah.
time with the help of the NASA astronauts. So,
Amazing.
three NASA astronauts help Mark reach home. He travels 1,000 years in the future, and he comes home
Hmm.
to a barren wasteland of Earth.
Hmm.
Everything is destroyed. It's just him and three apes in NASA outfits as they look around the barren wasteland and they see the ruins of DC, the Capitol Mall destroyed, the Lincoln Tower, the Lincoln Tower,
Hmm.
the Washington Tower, the Lincoln Monument, all destroyed.
Yeah.
Darkness and fires and smoke on the landscape and in the distance. Landmarks of culture disintegrated everywhere. Mark looks around and sees a campaign poster and on top of the remnants of what was the Capitol building. He sees a human looking thing with a blonde toupee, trying desperately to look human. He looks on the poster and he sees that it's Kong. Underneath the poster says the words "Death to all apes." Mark sees
Oh.
this and he says, "I'm so sorry" to his NASA astronauts. And just as he says this, massive mechs roll in and arrest the three apes as Mark is forced to watch end credits.
Oh, wow.
That's
That's
my
awesome.
that's my sequel to this movie.
I like that. That
And then it's
definitely.
sequel baits for another one because now we got
Yes.
mechs, we got and yes, I was making a reference to Trump with the blonde
Yeah.
toupee.
Oh, it
Yeah,
was very. I was gonna say.
and Kong is here again. And you always got to set it up. So that is my sequel to this movie here.
I,
Yeah, what do you think of it? Do you think is that would work?
I think that works because honestly, it satisfies a lot of what like because that sequel or the bait for the sequel.
So the only
I
thing
think
that kept me
I
writing
think it's
it
something
was when I got to the reference to BJ and the bear. And then at
right.
that point I just started laughing and I just thought of like how can I get like should I put in more BJ and the bear references every which way but loose?
Yeah.
Like yeah, but then I thought
Oh, you could and
maybe we don't lean too much on the humor, right? Because we are doing post-apocalyptic sci-fi wasteland.
that's
But
true.
I got to get him from Guantanamo Bay to DC somehow. So I
Yeah.
thought what better way than a big rig
You could
truck.
kind of get like a buddy like a buddy movie with Mark Wahlberg and Paul Giamatti.
Exactly. Basically, it's a buddy movie with Paul Giamatti. He would carry most of the movie, talking shit to
Oh,
or talking
absolutely.
shit to Mark of the whole way.
Hmm.
And you have basically, yeah, like a buddy travel around the world movie,
I like it. I
just
genuinely like
with
that.
just with the post-apocalyptic wasteland and apes instead of humans everywhere, and no CGI. no CGI.
No
Doing
CGI.
doing costumes the whole way.
Got to do costumes.
Yeah, especially with Paul Giamatti. His ape costume was amazing,
I
and
was about to
apparently
say, like,
he was one of the
if
only actors who wanted to come back for the sequel. He was completely
oh,
on board. He was like, "Hell yeah! Like I would love to play an ape that just sits around smoking a cigar, doing stupid shit." Like he was on board for it. But I think if you can't do this sequel, then you could definitely do Bad News Bears versus Planet of the Apes,
oh yeah,
and do just a baseball movie with the apes. I think that could also
I
work.
like that.
Take it in a different direction. Take it
I
in a
like that one
very
a lot.
different direction.
Hey, so this is not really an ad. I'm not being paid for this or anything. Just interrupting the podcast to give a little shout out to some people that I really enjoy. Um, if you're wanting to refinance your home or looking to buy a home for the first time and you live in Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, or Texas, then you should really look out Mortgage Financial Services, especially the lender Miranda Noland. She's really wonderful. She's getting started in the business. She's very knowledgeable, though, and she's also very friendly and helpful to everyone that she works with. And she will go above and beyond to help you and just give you information about what you need to do to get a home, what steps you should take, even if you're not necessarily ready to buy or if you're looking to refinance. That can be something that's difficult for people who have never done it before or and need some assistance with that. So she's great with that. Her NMLS ID number, that's hard for me to say, is 256-7401. One more time, that's 256-7401. And you can also look her up on Miranda. That's MIRANDA.mortgagefinancial.com. And thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day and continue listening to the show. Bye.
Beat the Bad News Bears, who were coming in, coached by Walter Matthau. How the Bad News Bears get to the Planet of the Apes, I don't know, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah, really.
We can keep writing the script after we've already hired everyone, and just figure it out.
Absolutely.
They win a contest to get on a spaceship, and then it sends them, and then they get trapped in a space-time vortex and are travel to the Planet of the Apes. And then they land, and they have all their baseball gear, so they're like, why not?
Yeah.
I think it's a great.
Man.
I feel like it's a great.
I like it. Oh, I think that's amazing.
All right, so we have reached the end of our episode tonight, and now we come to our time where we figure out what we're gonna watch for next time. So let me get a little roll dice thing. Do you want to roll the dice?
Do
you have a dice?
Okay. I don't. Well, I mean, I have dice, but they're like I don't know how many you have.
I just roll a d20.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, that's all. But I got it. So we got 19.
Okay.
This is a good one.
Solid roll.
I actually have watched this recently. Don't ask me why, but I just watched this not too long ago. So next week we will talk about another heavy hitter. This is going to be so right now this is our longest episode right now. But I feel like next week's episode might be just as long because we will be talking about the 1998 sci-fi action thriller by Michael Bay, Armageddon.
Oh, why on earth did you watch that recently?
Because I don't know either. I don't know. We're gonna watch it again because we don't want to miss a thing. That's why you got to watch it twice because there's a lot going on in that movie. So next week we will watch Armageddon and talk about another movie that deals more directly with the end of the world. This Planet of the Apes barely talks about it until the very end.
Yeah, exactly.
But the entire time I was watching this movie, I was like, "This is a good movie, or not a good movie. This is an interesting watch." But I don't know if this really fits the criteria for this podcast.
Right.
It's not really about the end of the world at all. So if someone comments, then they can be like, "That's not an end of the world movie." It's like, yes, you're right. I believe you are right. You are correct in that assumption. Definitely less so than its 1960s counterpart.
Exactly.
Next week, so Michael Bay. That's a big one. I love me some Michael Bay. Gotta talk all about. We talked about him a little bit tonight. We'll talk about him some more next time. Talk about Bruce Willis. Talk about fucking Billy Bob Thornton. how many things are wrong about that movie, because there's a lot, and how
Oh, there's
little sense it makes, because it makes virtually no sense at all. So join us next time for that, and we will see you guys for Armageddon It On with Armageddon. Thanks for watching. Bye.
right.
Yeah, they have all kinds of lesbian lusty sex. It's it's a silly movie. Um, I'd be lying if I said I haven't seen it. It has Misty Mundane in it. Erin Brown is her actual name. If you watched a lot of Cinemax or Skinemax, as they used to call it, or HBO After Dark, you definitely saw some Misty Mundane movies back in the 2000s because she did a lot of porn parodies. And as a porn parody goes, I haven't watched it in years. I'm not going to sit here and say that I put it on recently. Apparently, you can buy it on Amazon for, I'm clicking the link right now, $53. Get the fuck out of here. There's one